This part of the attachment unit is about the explanations of attachment. Over 4 sessions, we'll be looking at how to describe learning theory of attachment and evaluate it, and also how to describe the evolutionary theory to explain attachment, along with its evaluation. The first session of explanations of why attachment happens is based on the learning theory of attachment. This comes from behaviourist psychology, which, as you know already, is based on the idea that we learn all our behaviour. From this theory, we can suggest that attachment is learned through 2 parts, 1 operant conditioning and 2 classical conditioning. Operant conditioning. How does this explain why attachment happens? Well, there are 2 parts to operant conditioning, and it's all about reinforcement. Firstly, a behaviour that produces a reward is going to be repeated. This is called positive reinforcement. Whereas behaviours that stop something unpleasant from happening will also be repeated. This is called negative reinforcement. Researchers called Dollard and Miller support this idea and explain that the need for food is the basic idea behind attachment. For example, when a baby is hungry, they enter a negative drive state that makes them cry. Later on, you'll learn that crying is called a social releaser. When the baby is fed, this removes the hunger, and therefore it encourages the child to repeat the behaviour again. This is negative reinforcement, because it stops something unpleasant. In this case, it stops the hunger. Secondly, when the baby is crying, mum feeds them, and therefore this acts as a reward for their crying. So food is also the positive reinforcement because it produces a reward. Food is the primary reinforcer in this case, and the mother is the secondary reinforcer. Because mother is the source of reinforcement, an attachment bond is made between baby and mother, or primary caregiver. The second part of the behaviourist theory is that of classical conditioning. This is based on the stimulus-response explanation. So it's based on learning through making associations with other things. This is the process. Before conditioning happens, milk can be labelled as the unconditioned stimulus, and it produces a very unconditioned response of pleasure. During the process of conditioning, the mother, who again is a neutral stimulus, provides the milk, and therefore she becomes associated with the milk. This is the pairing of the unconditioned stimulus, the milk, and the neutral stimulus, the mother. And it still gives the baby a pleasure response, which is the unconditioned response. After that process of conditioning, the mother then becomes the conditioned stimulus, and she is the source of pleasure even without the milk. This forms the basis of the attachment bond between mother and baby.